Okay. So the state of the work right now is we wouldn't want to be running uh, staging or production on the Ansible playbooks just yet because we don't quite have feature parity. But they've taken shape. All the hard pieces are done, and it's at a point where people could play around with this testing deployment, could roll out updates and see how that goes. And so we want everyone to feel like they know how to do that before we move over the staging and production uh, deployments to use Ansible. So if we start from the README of the web monitoring Ansible repo, which, to be clear to anyone watching this video later, is a private repo just temporarily because we want to do a security review and probably scrub the history just to be safe. Not that there are any known leaks, but just want to be extra paranoid about this. So if you're interested in looking at this and you don't know where to find it, you should ask someone. Looking at that link now, you can see a section on the status of the repository, the various things I want to do that are done and are not done. The main missing piece right now is the Redis the Redis import worker and server. I think that may actually be working now, but it's not deployed. And there's one like policy financial decision we have to make around that I'll get to. So that's why that's not quite done yet. But everything else works, and you can use the app short of importing new versions into it right now. As we go down the page, if you're going to use this, there's 3 different secret files that you need access to. First of all, there's encrypted configuration data in the repository itself. Normally, we don't commit encrypted data to version control, but this is an exception. Ansible has a system for this called Ansible Vault, which has certain advantages and disadvantages, but I think it's the way to go here. I'll start sharing my screen at this point. So this is where I'm looking in the repository. Ansible Vault lets you have to use this Ansible Vault command line utility to edit a file with configurational information, and it decrypts it on the way out. So you'll need a password file in order to have that command work. You need to be able to log into the EC2 machines that we've deployed, these hosts, and for that you need a PEM file, which is along with the password file here shared in our Kubernetes, or not Kubernetes, our Keybase team folder, which I've recently added Francis to. And then finally, because the playbooks do other AWS stuff, because they're provisioning new machines as needed, or messing with DNS settings through AWS and so on, load balancer settings and so on, you need an access key and a secret access key for some AWS account that has sufficient permissions to modify these things. And those can just be set as environment variables through this convenience environment file. So those are the 3 prerequisites, along with, of course, installing Ansible itself and certain community-supported roles or extensions, you could say, to Ansible. So do you guys want to follow along interactively? This was my thought was that we should get you guys able to deploy sort of workshop style.
I've actually deployed it. I've had a broken installation on my AWS account using the role just as a test, and it mostly functions.
Cool. I'm almost surprised that it works that well. That's good. When's the last time that you polled, Francis?
Last week.
Okay.
So obviously it's not what you're working on right now.
Right.
But yeah,
definitely some known issues there, especially with regard to supervisor correctly tearing down the running app and relaunching a new version of it.
Yeah.
There was a known issue, should affect the API and the UI servers, where it it would actually lose control of that process. So some old process would keep running. It would try to start up a new version of the the deployment, and it would find that the port was already taken and then crash. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but if you will. So probably worth pulling again. Ray, do you want to try and make this happen on your side?
Yeah.
So the first step would be to install Ansible, and there's a blue link there that says official instructions.
Okay.
So Kevin's coming in. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Dan. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh.
Your timing is good. I was just telling Ray to install Ansible if he doesn't have it yet. Have you?
Oh, you're doing like a walk along, walk through.
We're doing it. Yeah.
I guess I should do the same.
You can get it from Homebrew. I think that's probably what the
okay.
official instructions say. Just brew install Ansible.
I need to do. Should I clone that repo, the web monitoring Ansible repo?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Francis, did you have questions based on what you tried? You did mention that it seemed to work.
I'm just pulling right now to see if it will work again today.
Yeah. You may need to log into, if you left any of those EC2 machines up, you'll need to log into them and kill the Yarn server and the Puma Rails server manually, based on that bug I mentioned.
So,
or just delete all the machines.
Dan, it wants me to use pip install.
For Ansible? That seems fine.
Like just throwing it out there.
Yep. So another question, I guess, is I'm going to unshare my screen as I go into EC2 here. Do you guys have access to the Edgy AWS account?
I don't. I probably do, but I've never used it.
Okay.
So maybe that's no.
Okay. So you, Ray, are on here. I don't see Kevin.
Yeah, I've never done any of the the AWS S3 stuff. I never touched it.
Okay.
Will I need it for today, or?
If you wanna, yes. I mean, I guess we'll get us however far we get, and I'd say like an hour and a half. We should probably cut this off, but I think the goal should be that you guys are able to do a deployment, and we won't know, what roadblocks you hit until you try it.
Yeah.
So hang on, let me just give you.
And then Dan, after the installing the dependencies, I go through and just go through the AWS deployment and get certs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to send this this info over Slack, and you guys can change your passwords and shred these keys later. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Sure.
So Ray, I take it that I should make a new password for you?
Yeah.
Kevin, I just sent yours. So if you haven't used AWS very much, the password relates to the web console, and the access key and the secret key relate to the to like programmatic access. And it's those that we're really going to need today. Okay.
Sorry, where should this stuff be saved? Like,
Which what?
oh, you know what? Okay, sorry. I need the, okay, never mind.
So Francis, I think we should also add you to the AWS, as you've already been very useful to the project, but I don't know Edgy has some process for that I'm supposed to go through. So if you're happy to work on your personal account for the purposes
Yeah,
of this
I'll work on my personal account until it doesn't work.
Okay,
And
great. The first thing that I'll do when we're done with this call is contact people higher up in Edgy to figure out if I can just, give you full access to this thing, or if we have to go through something. Kevin, I guess you don't know that off the top of your head, do you?
I don't.
Okay, no worries. Just as the steering committee rep.
I'm brand new. I think they share a lot of things through LastPass, and that has to happen. And there probably has to be some type of like approval dance that has to happen too. Yeah.
I don't know myself because I was just grandfathered in, I think.
Yeah, me too. No, I remember there was like they were talking about having access to certain things, and when I joined, they're like, "Oh yeah, the person that nominated you is supposed to walk you through all this stuff." And that was you, Dan. And I was like, "Oh yeah, Dan didn't actually get a walkthrough of all this different protocols either."
Yeah. Yeah, boy, there's a lot of right hand doesn't know what left hand is doing in this organization. I think it's not as bad as it was, but boy.
I think I have to like sign up for AWS.
you know this is being recorded, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is all well established.
Yeah, it might take me a while to catch up, so if you want to just move along, like feel free.
So
yeah, I'm still cloning the repo.
Is it that big?
No, it's just I'm that slow.
Okay. Oh, I sympathize.
Uh,
Well, let me see here. So if we're in the repo, I mean, honestly, the scope of what we really need to talk about is, wait, am I still screen sharing? Did that work? Yes. Hang on a second. Okay. The scope of what we really need to cover is just how to update and roll out an update, right? So inside this this inventory, we have some configurational stuff. Specifically, I'm looking at inventories, the testing inventory, and the group variables that apply to all of the hosts, and they're in this YAML file. And at the top here, we see some references to versions of the repositories on GitHub. So for the for web monitoring DB and web monitoring UI, I'm just grabbing the master branch right now. For web monitoring processing, I'm grabbing a branch with a specific fix that I use in the course of running this. I'm not actually sure if it's been merged. If it has, we can just revert this to master. But in any case, this is really the only thing you should routinely have to change. If you're deploying to staging, let's say, and you want the latest version of everything, then maybe these are just always aimed at the master branch. Or if you want to run some special deployment, on a personal account or on some new namespace for edgy, testing a set of branches that haven't been merged, you could put the branch names here. Eventually, we might get into a system where production is running on stable tagged branches that are behind the master branch, so we could adjust those here. So the idea is confirm that these versions are what you want, change them if you need to, and then run the Ansible playbook. So that looks something like this. Ansible playbook is the command. Then you specify some inventory, like the testing inventory. This choice of inventory encompasses the configuration that we were just looking at, and a choice of hosts, of EC2 machines that are, and I guess a third thing, it's associated with a certain URL. So there'll be API.testing and API.staging and API.production, and each of these will be mapped to a different inventory. Finally, once you've chosen an inventory, you choose a playbook. Site should do the entire site. It'll do the differs and the API server and the UI server all. If you just need to update one of these, you could select it out. Each one has its individual playbook, like the different servers or the UI servers. Maybe I'll just pick the UI servers as an example. So if I run this like that, it takes its sweet time parsing a bunch of text files. And also, actually, probably the most time-costly operation here is calling up Amazon and figuring out what machines exist.
Wait, how do I get the .pem file?
That one is shared in the Keybase team directory that I know that you're on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna watch, because I don't have access to that either. So it's just gonna take a lot of time. So yeah, I'll just be paying attention.
Okay, sorry, Kevin. I should have lined this up in advance for you.
No worries.
So I guess I'll just review the broad strokes of what's happening because it could error out at some point in this process, and I don't expect it to. But if it did for you, it would help to understand sort of what's happening. So this is not perfect, but generally, green means this was done and nothing had to change. In other words, we just confirmed that the machine was already in the state that we want it to be in. And yellow generally means that something has been changed, but changed correctly. Blue is skipped, and then red is failure. But this particular failure, we don't care about. And as you can see, it was ignored. So coming back up here, the general flow is we need to provision some machines on AWS, some EC2 machines. We need them to be exposed through a public endpoint. An elastic load balancer is Amazon's concept for that. So you could have multiple servers behind the same elastic load balancer that'll effectively be the same URL when we configure DNS. It'll be a human readable URL, and this means that if one or as long as one of the EC2 machines that are associated with this load balancer are operating, then the users should be able to function. I know Francis is very familiar with this. I'm not sure how much Ray and Kevin have been exposed to elastic load balancer. Is this a useful amount of detail, guys?
I've just heard of it and never really worked with it.
Okay. So the idea is I've got 5 servers that do the same thing, and I want one endpoint where I'm going to get randomly assigned or assigned to the server that is the least busy. So this allows us to scale up and have that be transparent to the user. So we've allocated all these things, and then we finally make the machines with the amount of resources that we specify, and we wait for them to come online so that we can talk to them. We need to install Python on them because Ansible needs Python to be there on the machines that it tries to do its tasks on. And then at this point, we can start going through and doing the actual installing of our software. So we've provisioned EC2 hosts. We've installed Python on them for Ansible's sake. Now we go on, we install Supervisor. We install Nginx. We create a sort of a deploy user that we're going to use to own the server processes. We install Node Version Manager and the version of Node that is needed by the version of the UI that we're running right now. A bunch of dependencies for the UI come in. Then we start to build it. This is a thing that Kevin recently fixed for me. And we apply some configuration to the supervisor that will allow it to run as many copies of the server as there are cores on the machine. And this configuration is done automatically through inspecting how many cores do we have, then run that number of servers. There's logging and so on. And then finally, let's see, where would the last step be? Right about here is where we expect the server to come online. And then we add these servers, or we add these EC2 instances to that load balancer that we created at the beginning. This step won't function unless the server is answering responses. So there's a validation that occurs in this step that says, if I try to make an HTTP request of this, of this server, it answers. And that's, your very basic check that you haven't just deployed a version of the app that is fully broken. And there are ways that we can incrementally improve that and make that check a little more thorough. But this at least tells you that something is alive on the other side. Finally, we configure a DNS, meaning that instead of some random IP address or inscrutable DNS name, we get this human readable name. And I think the plan then would be that, what do we call it? I think monitoring.enviro.gov.org is the URL that we send our analysts to. So we would make that an alias for this address, but probably UI.production in that case. So I'm just kind of rambling a little bit here. Does this make sense?
Yeah. So then that DNS thing, we're not pointing it to monitoring.envirodata.gov. It's an alias.
What Ansible is going to do is configure a DNS specific to this inventory, and then I imagine that manually, when we're ready, we'll just make monitoring.enviro.gov.org a permanent alias of ui.production.ansible. Whatever.
Okay.
And we do that once, and then it just is.
Okay.
So that's more or less all there is to it. When we advance the master branch, when we have a new feature, right now, what's your process right now, actually, Kevin? I haven't actually done this through Heroku in a while. I guess there's like a redeploy button that we just click.
What for UI? There's a script that I just run, and
I see.
yeah, and it just pushes to like Heroku has like a command line interface
Right.
where you just push a branch.
Right.
To,
Okay.
Yeah. So that's all it is.
Okay. So this is this line that I typed, right? The only line that actually did anything once we were configured is this one here on my screen, and that should be equivalent. The one detail that we haven't really addressed is that we want to do this with 0 downtime, ideally, right? We want to do a rolling update. The general case for that is tricky to get it right in every case, but to a first approximation, if it's a simple update that doesn't involve database migrations or anything crazy, then what you would do is in here, in this block where the software is installed, there's a parameter called serial where you can specify how many hosts you want to update at a time. So in the way that I've just done it is the way I would normally do it for testing. I don't want to wait I don't care about 0 downtime. So it's fine with me if for a couple seconds or a couple minutes, the URL ui.testing fails to work, right? Because all the servers have been killed and the software is being updated and brought online. But if this were a production deployment, then I would care about that this URL continued to function. And because of the load balancer, we can do that by updating these EC2 instances just one at a time. And when one EC2 instance stops responding to requests, the load balancer detects that and sends users to the other one. So we can, for example, say serial 1, and that means only take down one machine at a time. Or if in some future we were doing 50 of these in parallel, you could start saying percentages, like take 20% of the UI servers offline at a time. In the example that we're dealing with now, we have these things are deployed in pairs. So there's 2 servers. It would make sense to say do one at a time. So that would be something that I put in a production setting, but maybe not in a testing setting where I don't care about downtime. Does that seem sensible to you, Francis? Do you want to elaborate on this?
No, that's actually clever. I'd never considered that as a route, mostly because early on, you remember me saying I've moved away from Ansible, and that is something that I was just looking at the documentation as you were talking about it. I didn't know about that method of rolling updates. But yeah, that is solid logic. That's
yeah, cool. So we can, again, we can write down like a very step-by-step recipe if that's helpful for you guys, Kevin and Ray. But I imagine that the problems we're going to run into are like local problems on your laptop trying to install Ansible and talk to EC2 and everything. So I'm here for that if you want to try and do that. I'm going to pause the share again. Kevin, do you have a Keybase account?
No.
Okay, that's all right. We have like, you need 30 different accounts to access everything that Edgy has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm on a new computer. I don't know if you caught that before. I might have been on mute. I'm on a new computer, so
Oh, I didn't catch that.
I had to reinstall Keybase. And the new folder, which I've never used before, that should just appear in my Finder. Is that right?
If your Keybase application is running, it should.
Right.
Yeah, I've been like blissfully like ignorant of all this stuff, so it might not be a good forum for me to learn it right now on camera.
Well, I don't know. I think the goal of this call, in my view, was to get everybody up, able to have confidence to deploy the way that you are able to deploy now. I
I
don't want,
see.
when we switch the technology, for this to be a step backward. We could say,
Yeah, I just have a lot of prep to do because I don't have any of these things like set up.
like,
I
install.
wish I wish I had realized that I had to like go through all this stuff beforehand.
Yes,
late.
I should have like sent out some prerequisites of things to install before we start.
Yeah.
My bad.
So how do you think we should handle it right now?
Right now, I think we should focus on if Francis is able to redeploy and if he learns anything from that, and then maybe we'll do like a second session next week.
Or if you want, like you're talking about this step by step, if you want to just line up like the steps, like what I need right now, like we can just list them, and then after the call, I'll go through and get all the preparation.
I think it's as simple as install Keybase, let me add you, and then install Ansible.
Okay.
So it might not be that hard to do in real time here in the background.
It really, I don't think it is, but that's presumptuous. Is if you're used to installing software on your machines, Keybase is straightforward.
Okay, I'll do this while
Ansible is less straightforward, but you need a couple of commands for this. You should be okay. Like you're not learning how to write playbooks; you're just learning how to.
Yeah. To be honest, it did occur to me this morning of like sending out, oh, hey, before the call, if you have time, try and install Ansible and Keybase. But in my experience doing software tutorials at work, like the first 45 minutes of every tutorial is just installing software, and there's no way around that.
Okay.
Regardless of how much prep.
Yeah. I mean, I've switched to, instead of teaching people Python libraries on their own laptops, to just doing everything in Jupyter. In a browser. That's the only way you could skip it.
Where does the PEM file go?
So that needs to go in the root directory. So the idea is you clone the repo, then you copy that PEM file into the root directory of the repo.
Okay.
And likewise, you make that .env file.
Right. Okay. I'm writing stuff down, and I'm gonna make a PR with some of to the README, just to give some more instructions.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I can see that that's not as explicit as it could be.
Like I would add, copy the example into source.env.
Yeah.
It's implied, but.
Well, so source.env is down there if you look under AWS.
Right. Yeah. It is. On the repo, I have source that like ends that example. So, like you have to copy that. You know what I mean?
So I'm looking at let me share my screen. Here it says copy env.example.
Oh, never mind. I didn't see it.
No worries.
Yeah, but I think we can make it a little more like linear.
Right. No, I didn't see it. Sorry.
No, it's no worries. Well, so what I was thinking, just for the not to argue that we shouldn't change it, I'm open to changing it. But what I was thinking is, this is stuff you have to do a single time, and then this is stuff you have to do every time you open a new terminal tab or
right.
No.
Okay, I see. But even that label would be we can add.
Sure. Yeah.
It is not implied. It is actually explicit.
So did you do this this redeploy over there?
Yeah, so what I do in mine, because I don't have your vault, I create a new vault file. So I look at all the variables that are hidden, and I create a new vault file that doesn't depend, doesn't expect your the password that you have.
I see.
And
You should have access to that vault file for what it's worth. It's in the Keybase repo also.
Oh, is it?
Should be.
I didn't look anything beyond the. I didn't look for anything beyond the PEM file that you shared.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, not super clear. Let me let me fix the README now.
No, I got it. Where is the directory? It's right here. Ah, voila. Okay.
And Dan, the let's see. No. Should I use this password, Dan, now, or should I?
So the password that I sent you, the thing labeled password, is not relevant to what we're doing right now.
Okay.
The AWS access key and the secret key are the things that you need right now. And what you need to do with them is this step that I'm highlighting here. You need to fill them in.
Yeah. Do they need to be in quotes or anything?
Never hurts to put things in quotes in Bash. I don't think I'm sure they don't have to be in this case, but it doesn't hurt.
Okay, well, I'll start with quotes and see.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that'll work with quotes, but it doesn't have to be in this case. I'm just thinking back to Rob and I had some crazy problem where, we randomly generated a password using LastPass, and it had a $sign in it. Which does have meaning in Bash. Probably lost 3 hours for that.
3 hours.
Wow.
3 hours you're not getting back.
Yeah.
So actually, Francis, and that's another reason for
I encountered that with MariaDB.
Did you?
I encountered that with MariaDB, and now my last word by default has avoid ambiguous characters. Yep. Oh no, that still adds a $. Never mind.
I think I turned off punctuation, and I only turn it on if the website demands it. Okay. 64 random alphanumeric characters should be good enough.
I was just thinking though, Francis, that photo of you with the hand also applies in self-inflicted cases. So
yeah.
Dan, I'm getting an error that the vault password file wasn't found.
Okay, so do you have Keybase on your machine yet?
Yes.
Did you copy? So I'm going to highlight this in the README. Place it in the root directory of the cloned repo.
Oh, I didn't do that. Okay. Wait, sorry.
Kevin, how you doing over there?
I have Keybase installed now.
Great. And what's your account? Because I need to give you access.
Light and Luck.
Oh, easy enough.
Yeah. Do you need my email, or do you need?
I think Light and Luck is sufficient.
Yeah.
Hang on.
And then so in the instructions, this Ansible vault thing, is that related to Keybase, or is that some?
It is. So there's two files in Keybase that are going to give you access to everything that you need.
If you install Ansible, that comes with it.
Wait, what does? Oh, the Vault. Yeah. Ansible Vault is the program Ansible Vault is included with Ansible. If that was your question.
Yeah, and then the vault password file you're gonna send me through Keybase.
Right.
Okay.
Either Keybase is crashing, or I don't know how to use Keybase. What's going on here? Add people by username. Okay, you should now be added. And if you go to the team folder,
Oh, yep, I see it.
there's 2 files, and you just want to copy them both to the root of the repo that you've cloned. The Vault password file and the .pem file, web monitoring test.pem. These guys.
How do I like get? Let me see.
What's that?
Oh, okay. I'm just like, how do I even get to this folder?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dan, when I did like the first Ansible.i inventories, the list hosts,
Mm-hmm.
it worked, but I got all these warnings. So
That's probably okay. Let me see what I get. So was it like this? Is this the command? Ansible list host? I think so.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh wait, but we need a category. So you probably did like API servers. I think that's the example in the README.
I didn't even do that. It was just inventory / texting API servers.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah,
did
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. You did it in a different order.
Right.
Yeah.
Shouldn't matter.
Right.
So just to make sure, did you linearly, you sourced the environment and you did SSH add for sure?
Yeah.
And did you also grab these guys?
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I get when I do that.
Okay.
What warnings do you get?
Here, I can, do you want to stop sharing your screen and I can share mine?
Perfect.
Can you see that?
When's the last time you cloned this? Like just now?
Yeah. But I did a bunch of stuff out of order, I think. I'm not sure if that matters or not.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay, so there's another thing we need to add to the README. Pip install Boto. BOTO.
So I should do the same.
Yeah.
Pip install Boto. Okay.
Yeah.
What's Boto?
Boto is the
Python library for AWS.
right.
For what?
Python API
AWS.
to AWS. So if you want to provision a new EC2 machine, you can do it through Amazon's web interface, or you can do it through like a bash client where you type AWS blah 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 blah, or you can do it in a Python script. And if you do it in a Python script, you use Boto. And because Ansible is implemented in Python, they use Boto also. All right. Do we have to post the recording from this call? I want to do things that are going to leak configuration information.
Right. Should we stop?
Is there any way to keep this from being posted or make it private rather than trash it?
That I'm not sure.
All right, let's just stop recording.
Yeah. It goes to the
Okay.
Okay, so we're back on. So Kevin is running the playbook called UI servers on the test inventory, the testing inventory, and it's slow. The first thing that it's doing is asking AWS for a list of all of the EC2 machines that are online. And every machine has an IP address that we can use to SSH into it, and Ansible will be doing that also. But additionally, it has tags. And Francis earlier, when we weren't recording, alluded to that he liked this system, which is good, where you can give instances one or more tags, and basically we have two machines that are tagged that they should get the API server, two machines that are tagged that they should get the UI server and the diffing servers and so on. And so it's collecting all that information, and it's going to figure out, of all of the EC2 machines that are online, which of these are tagged that they should have the UI app installed and running on them. And this I think it involves a couple requests and responses back and forth, which is why it takes an age. In the command above this, when Kevin ran list hosts, he did basically exactly what I've just described and then stopped, right? So that just goes through phones Amazon and says, what are the IP addresses that match this filter or match this I guess group would be the Ansible jargon for this group of hosts called API servers in that case. And it comes back with an answer.
So if you wanted to deploy, so this is just like a testing server. So if you wanted to deploy to like staging, it would be inventory/staging, or?
That's right, and that doesn't work yet, to be clear, because I basically just got testing working. So we want to sort of hammer on this a little bit before we deploy to staging. But when it's the only thing that's involved in making staging work is just double checking that it's identical to testing except for some of the configurational variables, right? Once that's done and we're ready to move staging over, then the only difference is changing the word testing to staging.
Cool. I'll probably go and review the video because I think there were parts when I was like installing and I missed some of the descriptions. So I still need to conceptually think there's still some holes on what's happening, but
I would recommend sort of poking around the Ansible docs too, because it's actually really well written.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about this about a year ago, and I found it, and I haven't had anyone to learn from, and I found the documentation pretty easy to learn from.
Great.
Personal endorsement. Okay, so we still have a Bodo 3 problem, huh?
What was the thing Ray had?
I want to see, where did you pip install Bodo before, Kevin?
Here, I guess. I don't remember.
Just type history. History don't lie. Okay. Pip install Bodo 3.
Oh, okay. All one.
Yeah. I know a way to solve this, but we're just going to do this. I think the version of Python that Ansible is invoking is different than the version of Python that Ansible is installed in, which is why this is confusing. So yeah.
Oh, no, this is like, that's why I like Conda, or like one of those package managers or version managers.
Yeah. Sometimes they create problems, and that's what's happening here, but generally they solve them. Okay, try again. I'm just going to do the whole long handshake again.
And then the address for the UI, it's you pasted it somewhere. Is that in Slack? The URL to get to it?
Yeah, it'll actually tell you at the end,
Okay.
but it was just convenient. But the URL is this.
And then for like the diff server and the API testing, are they already working?
Yes, they're already working and up. So if you go to that URL and you try to diff 2 pages, you'll see that it works and it's running against. So there's UI, there's API. Those support HTTPS. And then there's, I think I called it diffing. And that's HTTP only. Yep.
And we only have one database, right? So our creds will work, right?
This is running against the staging database. So your staging creds will work.
I mean, overall, it's really easy to do. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real slick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, since this is taking forever to run, maybe I will try to give a verbal explanation to some of these concepts that Ray was talking about. Is that useful? Okay.
Yeah.
So edgy-wise, we want a couple parallel deployments that are generally non-interfering. I guess the testing and the staging currently share a database, but other than that, they're isolated in terms of there's a testing differ and a testing API, both being used by a testing UI, right? And so this is like a namespace, so to speak. In Kubernetes, they would call it a namespace. And so I've come up with this idea that we'll have a subdomain under ansible.monitoring.enviro.gov.org that will correspond to this satellite or this constellation of services that have to do with each other. There'll be a testing one, a staging one, and a production one. The names in the URL don't have to correspond to anything, but this is just a way of keeping us internally organized. Then if the users are supposed to go to UI.production.ansible, whatever, we'll just do a redirect, so that they only see a short, sensible URL. But we can have as many of these going as we want with really specific names. So on the Ansible side, Ansible doesn't necessarily care about these URLs, but Ansible has a concept of inventories, which is to say I might have a series of steps that I want to apply to different groups of hosts. So I might want to do it on like my personal Amazon account, or on the edgy Amazon account, or on the whatever Android tool you're doing, the web integrity project, right? And the idea is that these could be implemented as many different inventories that to which you apply the same playbooks, the same sets of tasks. And so when I run Ansible, the Ansible playbook command, I'm basically saying run these plays, in this case UI_servers, and do it on these hosts or this inventory. And an inventory can be made up of just a list of IP addresses. That would have been the simplest way to do this. Or it can sort of be routed through Amazon and use Amazon's tagging feature to figure out which IP addresses it should be hitting. But at the end of the day, the goal is to get this is a list of IP addresses that we want to run, that we want to SSH into and run these tasks on, and then quit. How's it going? Okay. Go ahead.
It's running and working.
Great, dude.
All this stuff is. I'm hacking right now.
Great. Okay,
and
so
it's 5:31.
Yeah, both of you have successfully deployed to the UI. This call is therefore I declare it a great success.
I did it. We did it.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna